My name is Corinne Sullivan, and I'm 67 years old. I was married to Monroe Sullivan for 43 years. 43 years of what I thought was love, partnership, and commitment. I was wrong about all of it. Let me tell you about the moment everything came crashing down for Monroe. The moment I walked into his girlfriend's house wearing my crimson red power suit, the suit I'd bought specifically for that day, and watched my husband literally collapse to the floor when he realized Karma had arrived wearing designer heels and carrying receipts. It was a Wednesday afternoon in July. Hot, humid, the kind of Georgia summer day that makes you want to stay inside with the air conditioning. But I wasn't staying inside. I was standing on the porch of 1847 Maple Drive, a modest house in a quiet neighborhood about 20 minutes from where Monroe and I had lived for the past 30 years. I knocked on the door, firm, confident, the knock of a woman who knew exactly what she was doing. A woman answered, young, maybe 35 years old, pretty in that fresh-faced way that comes with youth. She looked at me confused. "Can I help you?" "Yes, I'm here to see Monroe Sullivan. Is he here?" Her face went pale. "Who are you?" "I'm Corinne Sullivan, Monroe's wife." She tried to close the door. I stopped it with my foot, designer heel and all. "We need to talk, all three of us, now." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sally, that's your name, right?" Sally Crawford, 26 years old, works as a dental hygienist. Met my husband 2 years ago when he came in for a cleaning. Don't bother lying, I know everything. Her mouth fell open. "How did you?" "Because I'm not stupid, and I've spent the last 6 months gathering information. Now, are you going to let me in? Or are we going to have this conversation on your porch where all your neighbors can hear?" She stepped aside. "Let me in." Her hands were shaking. The house was small but nicely decorated. I could see Monroe's influence. The flat-screen TV he'd insisted he needed for work. The leather recliner that looked suspiciously like the one he'd said was too expensive when I'd wanted to buy it for our home. "Where is he?" I asked. "In the bedroom. He's napping." "Wake him up. Tell him his wife is here. Tell him it's time to face what he's done." Sally disappeared down the hallway. I heard muffled voices, then silence, then footsteps. Monroe appeared in the hallway. My husband of 43 years, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt, comfortable, like this was his home. His face went from confusion to recognition to absolute terror in about 3 seconds. "Corinne, what are you doing here? How did you?" "Sit down, Monroe." "Corinne, I can explain." "Sit down." He sat on the couch. Sally stood in the doorway, looking like she wanted to disappear. I remained standing, in my crimson red suit, in my power position. "Do you know what today is, Monroe?" "What? No, Today is the day you learn that actions have consequences. Today is the day karma arrives. And Monroe," I smiled, a cold, knowing smile. "Karma is wearing a really expensive suit." I pulled out a folder from my leather briefcase, set it on the coffee table between us. "For the past 6 months, I've been documenting everything you've done. Every lie, every theft, every moment of your betrayal. And now I'm going to show you exactly what happens when you cheat on, lie to, and steal from your wife." Monroe's face went gray, then white. His hands started shaking. "What are you talking about?" "Open the folder." He reached for it with trembling hands, opened it, and that's when it happened. The color completely drained from his face. His eyes went wide. His breathing got rapid and shallow. He looked up at me with pure panic in his eyes. No, this can't be." "Keep reading." He flipped through the pages. Financial statements, bank records, property deeds, legal documents, evidence of everything he'd done, everything he'd stolen, everything he'd hidden. And then he saw the last page, the one that proved I hadn't just discovered his secrets. I'd already dismantled his entire life. That's when he collapsed, literally slid off the couch onto the floor, clutching his chest, gasping for air. "Monroe!" Sally screamed, running to him. I stood there calmly, watching. He's having a panic attack, not a heart attack, though I'm sure he wishes it were the latter. What did you do to him? Sally cried. I didn't do anything to him. He did it to himself. I just made sure he faced the consequences. Monroe looked up at me from the floor, tears streaming down his face. How could you do this? How could I? Monroe, you cheated on me. You lied to me. You stole from me. And you honestly have the nerve to ask how I could do this. Please, he begged. Please, we can work this out. I'll end things with Sally. I'll come home. I'll make it right. It's too late for that. You see, Monroe, while you were busy playing house with your girlfriend and stealing money from our accounts, I was busy protecting myself. I was busy making sure that when you inevitably tried to leave me with nothing, you'd be the one who ended up with nothing instead. I picked up the folder, held it up so he could see it. This folder contains proof that you've been embezzling money from our joint accounts for 2 years, transferring it to accounts in Sally's name, buying this house for her using money you stole from me, taking out credit cards in my name and maxing them out, hiding assets, planning to divorce me and leave me broke while you ran off with your young girlfriend. But what you didn't know, I continued, my voice like ice, is that I figured it out 6 months ago, and I've spent that time building a case, gathering evidence, and most importantly, taking back everything you stole, every penny, every asset, every single thing you thought you'd hidden from me. Monroe was hyperventilating now. What did you do? I froze all the accounts you opened in Sally's name. I reported the fraud on the credit cards. I filed complaints with the banks. I secured orders preventing you from accessing any of our joint accounts. I transferred all our legitimate money into accounts only I can access. I refinanced the house, our actual house, in only my name. And as of 8 a.m. this morning, I filed for divorce, with all of this evidence showing what you did. I crouched down so I was at his eye level, so he could see the cold fury in my eyes. You tried to steal my life savings. You tried to destroy my financial security. You tried to leave me with nothing after 43 years of marriage. But Monroe, you forgot one thing. I'm smarter than you. I'm better at planning than you, and I'm absolutely ruthless when someone betrays me. He was crying now, full-on sobbing. Please, please don't do this. You're ruining my life. No, you ruined your own life. I'm just making sure you pay for it. I stood up, straightened my suit, looked at Sally, who was staring at me with a mixture of horror and awe. Sally, honey, let me give you some advice. The house you're living in, it's being foreclosed on. Monroe bought it with stolen money and the banks are taking it back. The credit cards he's been using to buy you nice things. Fraud. You might want to get a lawyer because the credit card companies are going to come after both of you. And that man on the floor who you thought was your future, he's about to be broke, divorced, and possibly facing criminal charges. So if I were you, I'd run. Fast. I walked to the door, turned back one last time. Oh, and Monroe, that expensive life insurance policy you took out on me last year, the one where you're the sole beneficiary, I canceled it, and I took out one on you instead, so you might want to be careful. Stress can kill a man your age. I left, walking out of that house with my head held high, leaving my cheating, lying, stealing husband collapsed on the floor, finally understanding what happens when karma arrives wearing a crimson-red suit. If this story has you hooked, you need to subscribe right now and hit that notification bell. We bring you the most dramatic grandmother stories every week. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from: USA, Nigeria, Ghana, UK, Canada, Jamaica, Kenya. Let us know. Now let's get into this story. But to understand how I got to that moment, how I discovered Monroe's betrayal, how I planned my revenge, how I became the woman in the crimson suit, I need to take you back to the beginning. Back to 6 months earlier, when I accidentally discovered my husband was living a double life. 6 months earlier, I was a happy wife, or at least I thought I was. Monroe and I had been married for 43 years. We'd raised 2 children, Nettie and Hiram, who were now grown with families of their own. We'd built a comfortable life, a nice house, retirement savings, plans for the future. Monroe was 69 years old. He'd worked as an accountant for 40 years before retiring 3 years ago. I'd been a high school English teacher for 35 years before retiring 2 years ago. We were supposed to be enjoying our golden years, traveling, spending time with grandchildren, finally relaxing after decades of work. But about 2 years ago, Monroe started acting different, distant, distracted. He was on his phone constantly, taking calls in the other room, going out for errands that took hours. "I'm meeting the guys," he'd say, or "I need to pick up something from the store," or "the car needs an oil change." I believed him. Why wouldn't I? After 41 years of marriage, you trust your husband. But then 6 months ago, something happened that made me pay attention. Our bank statement came in the mail. I always reviewed our finances, had done so for our entire marriage. Monroe was the accountant, but I was the one who actually managed our household budget. I noticed something odd. A transfer of $5,000 to an account I didn't recognize, just labeled external transfer, with an account number I'd never seen before. I called the bank. "Can you tell me about this transfer?" The customer service representative checked. "Yes, Mrs. Sullivan. That's a transfer to an account at First National Bank. Account holder is Sally Crawford." My heart stopped. "Who?" "Sally Crawford. The account was added as a linked external account 6 months ago. You authorized the link." "No, I didn't. According to our records, the request came through online banking using your husband's login credentials. Is there a problem?" "Yes, there's a problem. I didn't authorize any such transfer, and I don't know anyone named Sally Crawford." I hung up the phone. My hands were shaking. Monroe had transferred $5,000 to someone I'd never heard of, someone he'd connected to our bank account without telling me. I went back through our previous statements, 6 months of them, and I found more transfers: $3,000, $4,500, $2,000, all to the same external account, all totaling over $35,000. Monroe had been sending money to some woman named Sally Crawford for 6 months, and I'd had no idea. That evening, I confronted him, calmly. I'd learned over the years that yelling doesn't get you anywhere. "Monroe, we need to talk about our finances." He looked up from his phone. "What about them?" "I noticed some transfers in our bank statements to an account under the name Sally Crawford. Can you explain that?" His face went pale for just a second. Then he recovered, put on a confused expression. "Sally Crawford, I don't know anyone by that name. Are you sure?" "Yes, I'm sure. $35,000 has been transferred to her account over the past 6 months, from our joint savings." "That must be a mistake, bank error. I'll call them tomorrow and get it sorted out." "It's not a bank error, Monroe. The transfers were made using your online banking login." He looked genuinely confused now, or he was a really good actor. "Corinne, I have no idea what you're talking about. Maybe someone hacked my account. Identity theft is common these days." "So you're saying you don't know Sally Crawford?" "I've never heard that name in my life." I searched his face for signs of lying. But Monroe was good. 43 years of marriage, and I still couldn't always tell when he was being dishonest. "Okay," I said. "Then let's call the bank together right now, report the fraud, file a police report for identity theft." "Now, Corinne, it's 8 p.m. Let's do it tomorrow during business hours." "The fraud department is open 24/7. Let's call now." He shifted uncomfortably. "I'm tired. I've had a long day. Can we deal with this tomorrow, please?" That's when I knew, when I absolutely knew he was lying, because an innocent man whose identity had been stolen would be on the phone immediately, would be panicked, would want to fix it right away. But Monroe wanted to wait until tomorrow, because he needed time to think, time to plan, time to cover his tracks. "Fine," I said. "We'll deal with it tomorrow." That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake next to my husband of 43 years, wondering who he really was, wondering what else he'd been hiding, wondering if our entire marriage had been a lie. The next morning, Monroe left early, said he had a doctor's appointment, said he'd be back around noon. The moment he left, I started investigating. I went through his phone records, the bills came to our email, and I knew his password. I went through his credit card statements, his computer history, everything I could access. And that's when I found it, evidence of a whole other life. Phone calls to the same number, hundreds of them, hours-long conversations, late-night texts. Charges at restaurants I'd never been to, jewelry stores, lingerie shops, a furniture store where he'd bought a bedroom set, claiming to me he'd just been window shopping. Calendar appointments labeled client meeting that happened 3 times a week, always at the same time, always for 2 hours. And then I found the real smoking gun, hidden in a folder on his computer labeled Tax Documents 2019. A folder I'd never have reason to open since our accountant handled our taxes. Inside that folder were photos, Monroe with a young woman, his arm around her, kissing her, in what looked like a house I didn't recognize, smiling, happy, in love. I zoomed in on one photo, looked at the background, and my blood ran cold. There was a piece of mail visible on the table behind them. I could just barely make out the address, 1847 Maple Drive. My husband wasn't just having an affair. He'd bought his girlfriend a house. I sat at Monroe's computer for 3 hours that morning, digging, discovering, documenting. I found the mortgage documents for 1847 Maple Drive. Monroe had bought it 18 months ago, put it in Sally Crawford's name, but the money came from our accounts, from our retirement savings, money we'd both earned over 40 years of work. I found evidence that he'd opened credit cards in my name, maxed them out buying furniture and appliances for Sally's house, racked up over $60,000 in debt that I knew nothing about. I found proof that he'd been planning to divorce me, documents from a lawyer outlining how to protect his assets, how to hide money before filing, how to make sure I got as little as possible in the settlement. He'd been planning this for over a year, planning to leave me broke and alone while he ran off with his young girlfriend to the house he'd bought her with my money. I printed everything, every document, every photo, every piece of evidence. I made copies, digital and physical. I secured them in multiple places. And then I did what any smart woman would do. I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, the best divorce attorney in Atlanta. A woman named Lucinda Harper who had a reputation for destroying cheating husbands in court. "Mrs. Sullivan," Lucinda said after I explained my situation, "what you're describing is financial fraud, identity theft, and a whole host of other illegal activities. We can absolutely destroy him." "I don't want to destroy him in court," I said calmly. "I want to destroy him everywhere. I want him to lose everything. I want him to understand what happens when you betray someone who trusted you for 43 years. Lucinda smiled. "Then let's build a case, and let's make sure every penny he stole gets returned to you with interest." For the next 6 months, I played the role of oblivious wife perfectly. I never confronted Monroe again about the transfers. I acted like I'd believed his identity theft story. I went to dinners with him, watched TV with him, slept in the same bed with him. All while secretly building my case, gathering evidence, protecting my assets, planning my revenge. I tracked every dollar he'd stolen, every lie he'd told, every moment he spent with Sally while pretending to be with the guys or running errands. I hired a private investigator who followed Monroe and documented his affair. Photos of them together, video of him going in and out of her house, proof of everything. I worked with Lucinda to secure our assets. We refinanced the house in only my name. Monroe signed the paperwork thinking it was just routine maintenance of our mortgage. We transferred money from joint accounts to accounts only I could access. We froze the accounts he'd opened in Sally's name. We reported the credit card fraud, filed complaints with the banks, built a paper trail showing that Monroe had been committing financial crimes against his own wife. And we planned my moment, the moment when I would confront him, when Karma would arrive wearing a crimson-red suit. On the morning of that Wednesday in July, I'd woken up early, put on my crimson suit, the one I'd bought specifically for this moment, the one that made me feel powerful, made me look like the successful, intelligent, capable woman I was. I'd driven to 1847 Maple Drive, parked across the street, Waited until I saw Monroe's car in the driveway. And then I'd walked up to that door, knocked, and delivered karma personally. Now, as I drove away from Sally's house, I felt free. For 6 months, I'd carried the weight of Monroe's betrayal in secret. For 6 months, I'd pretended everything was fine while planning my revenge. But now he knew. Now he understood. Now he was facing the consequences of his actions. My phone rang. It was Lucinda. Corinne, the divorce papers were served to Monroe 30 minutes ago, and I just got a call from his lawyer. What did he say? He wants to negotiate. He's offering to give you the house and half the retirement savings if you'll agree not to press charges for the fraud. Tell him no. Are you sure? That's a good settlement. I don't want a good settlement. I want everything. Every penny he stole. Every asset he tried to hide. I want him to walk away from this marriage with exactly what he tried to leave me with. Nothing. Corinne, you know divorce doesn't work that way. Even with all the evidence we have, the court will probably split things 50-50. Then we won't settle in court. We'll settle in the court of public opinion. Lucinda, I want you to leak this story to the media. I want everyone to know what Monroe Sullivan did. I want his name destroyed. I want him unemployable. I want him to face social consequences for his actions. There was a pause. Then Lucinda said, Are you sure you want to do that? It will be public. Humiliating, not just for him, but for you too. I don't care. He humiliated me in private for 2 years. Let's see how he likes being humiliated in public. Okay, I'll make some calls. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't have predicted, was that making this story public would set off a chain reaction of events I never saw coming. Events that would reveal even more of Monroe's secrets, even more of his lies, and even more people he'd betrayed. Because as it turned out, I wasn't the only woman Monroe had stolen from. I wasn't the only one he'd lied to, and I wasn't the only one seeking revenge. He stole $35,000 and bought his girlfriend a house. If you're furious, smash that like button and subscribe immediately. Turn on notifications. And comment, where are you watching from, and what would you have done? 3 days after I confronted Monroe at Sally's house, the story hit the news. Not just local news, national news. Atlanta accountant accused of stealing over $100,000 from wife to fund secret life with younger girlfriend. The headlines were everywhere. News websites, social media, local TV stations. My phone wouldn't stop ringing, reporters wanting interviews, friends calling to check on me, strangers reaching out with support. I sat in my lawyer Lucinda's office, reading the articles on her computer. Are you okay? She asked gently. I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. For 2 years, Monroe made me feel crazy, made me doubt myself, made me think I was being paranoid when I sensed something was wrong. Now the whole world knows I was right. The response has been overwhelming. Women are calling Monroe a monster. Men are calling him a disgrace. The story has struck a nerve. My phone buzzed. A text from my daughter Nettie. Mama, I just saw the news. I'm coming over. We need to talk. I sighed. I hadn't told my children yet. Hadn't prepared them for what was coming. They were about to find out their father was a lying, cheating thief through news articles and social media posts. I need to go home, I told Lucinda. My children are coming. I need to explain this to them before they hear it from everyone else. Before you go, there's something you should know. Since the story broke this morning, we've received calls from other women. I looked up sharply. What kind of calls? Women claiming Monroe defrauded them too. Women saying he stole money from them. Women who want to add their stories to yours. My blood ran cold. How many women? So far, 5, and they're still calling. Don't miss what happens next. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. Comment where you're watching from. When I got home, both my children were already there. Nettie, my daughter, 42 years old, standing in my living room with her arms crossed. Hiram, my son, 39 years old, packing by the window. Mama, Nettie said the moment I walked in, what the hell is going on? The news is saying Daddy stole money from you. that he has a girlfriend, that he's been living a double life. I set my purse down, took off my crimson suit jacket, sat down in my chair. It's all true. What? Hiram stopped packing. All of it. Every word. Your father has been having an affair for 2 years with a 26-year-old woman named Sally Crawford. He bought her a house using money from our retirement savings. He took out credit cards in my name and maxed them out buying her furniture. He stole over $100,000 from me while planning to divorce me and leave me with nothing. Nettie sat down heavily on the couch. I don't understand. Daddy wouldn't do that. He loves you. He's a good man. Your father is a liar and a thief, and I have proof. Would you like to see it? I pulled out my folder, the same one I'd shown Monroe. I spread the documents on the coffee table, bank statements, photos, mortgage papers, everything. My children stared at the evidence in silence. Nettie started crying. Hiram's face went from shock to anger to devastation. Why didn't you tell us? Hiram finally asked. 6 months, Mama. You knew for 6 months and didn't tell us. Because I needed to protect myself first. I needed to secure our assets and build my case before Monroe found out I knew. If I'd told you, you might have accidentally tipped him off, or tried to convince me to forgive him, or made me doubt what I knew was true. We would never, Nettie started. Wouldn't you? Be honest. If I'd come to you 6 months ago and said, I think your father is having an affair and stealing money, what would you have said? They looked at each other. Neither answered, because we all knew the truth. They would have defended their father, would have told me I was being paranoid, would have asked if maybe I was confused or making assumptions. Exactly, I said. So I handled it myself, and now your father is facing consequences for what he did. Have you talked to Daddy? Nettie asked, since the news broke. No, he's called me 37 times. I haven't answered. He sent text messages begging me to talk to him. I've deleted them all without reading. He had 2 years to talk to me, to be honest with me, to treat me with respect. He chose to lie instead. I'm done listening. Hiram stood up and started packing again. This is going to destroy our family. Everyone knows now. My colleagues are asking me about it. Nettie's friends are calling her. The grandkids are going to see this on the news. How are we supposed to deal with this? The same way I dealt with it, by accepting that Monroe made choices, bad choices, evil choices, and now he's facing the natural consequences of those choices. That's not my fault, it's his. But did you have to make it public? Nettie asked. Did you have to tell the media? Now everyone knows our family's business. Everyone is judging us. Everyone is judging Monroe. Not you, not me, him. He's the one who cheated. He's the one who stole. He's the one who betrayed his family. I'm just making sure he doesn't get away with it. What do you want from him, Mama? Hiram asked. Do you want him to come crawling back, to apologize, to make it right? No, I want him to lose everything. I want him to understand what it feels like to have your life destroyed by someone you trusted. I want him to face real consequences, financial, social, and legal. Legal? Nettie's eyes went wide. You're pressing charges. I'm considering it. Identity theft, fraud, embezzlement, all of it is criminal. Monroe could go to prison. You'd send Daddy to prison. He sent himself to prison when he committed crimes. I'm just making sure justice is served. My phone rang. It was Lucinda. I answered. Corinne, you need to come back to my office. Now, we've had 8 more women call in the last hour, all claiming Monroe defrauded them, and one of them has a story that changes everything. I drove back to Lucinda's office, my heart pounding. 8 more women. That meant Monroe had victimized at least 13 women, including me. What kind of monster had I been married to? When I arrived, Lucinda's conference room was full. 7 women sitting around the table, all different ages, all looking nervous, angry, or both. Corinne, Lucinda said, these are some of the women who have come forward. I thought it would be helpful if you all met, heard each other's stories, understood the full scope of what Monroe has done. I sat down, looked around the table. Thank you for coming, and thank you for being brave enough to speak up. An older woman, maybe 75, spoke first. My name is Hortense Dixon. I hired Monroe to do my taxes 5 years ago. He was recommended by a friend, seemed trustworthy, professional. But last year, I found out he'd been stealing from me. He had access to my bank accounts to handle my taxes, and he'd been transferring money to himself. Small amounts at first, $200 here, $500 there. But over 5 years, he stole over $50,000 from me. My stomach dropped. Did you report it? I tried, but Monroe convinced me not to. He cried, apologized, said he was going through a rough patch financially, said he'd pay it all back, begged me not to ruin his life, and like a fool, I believed him. He paid back $5,000 and promised to pay the rest in monthly installments. He never paid another dime. I'm so sorry, I said. I had no idea he was doing this to other people. It gets worse, another woman said. She looked to be in her 60s, well-dressed, with kind eyes. I'm Bertha Reynolds. Monroe handled my late husband's estate after he died 3 years ago. He was supposed to help me manage the inheritance, set up trusts for my grandchildren, that sort of thing. Instead, he stole $75,000 from the estate. I only found out when my own accountant reviewed the books last year. By then, the money was gone. Did you go to the police? I asked. No, Monroe told me if I reported him, he'd claim I'd authorized the transfers. That it would be my word against his. That I was an elderly widow who might be confused about her finances. He made me think no one would believe me, so I stayed quiet. But when I saw your story on the news this morning, I realized he does this to everyone. He targets women, especially older women, especially women who are vulnerable. The other women around the table nodded. They each had similar stories. Monroe had targeted them as clients, had gained their trust, had access to their financial accounts, and had stolen from them. How much total? I asked quietly. Across all of you. Lucinda looked at her notes. Based on the women who have come forward so far, we're estimating Monroe has stolen over $400,000 over the past 10 years. $400,000. My husband wasn't just a cheater and a liar. He was a serial financial predator who'd been targeting vulnerable women for a decade. There's more, Lucinda said. One woman has a story that's different, worse. Corinne, this is Vada Thompson. A woman in her early 50s stood up. She looked scared but determined. Mrs. Sullivan, I need to tell you something about your husband. Something that's going to be very hard to hear. I'm listening. 23 years ago, I was a 19-year-old college student. I worked part-time at the accounting firm where Monroe worked. He was my supervisor. He was 46 years old, married with 2 young children, and he sexually harassed me for months. Inappropriate comments, touching, cornering me in supply closets. I was terrified, but I needed the job, and he was powerful at the firm, so I stayed quiet. I felt sick. Did you report it? Eventually, yes. I went to HR, filed a formal complaint, but Monroe denied everything. Said I was making it up, that I had a crush on him and he'd rejected me, so now I was trying to ruin his career. The firm didn't want a scandal, so they quietly paid me $25,000 to sign an NDA and leave. Monroe kept his job, his reputation, his family, and I was silenced. Why are you coming forward now? Because I saw your story, and I realized Monroe has been destroying women's lives for decades, and he keeps getting away with it, and I can't stay silent anymore. That NDA I signed, I'm breaking it. I don't care if they sue me. The truth needs to come out. The room was silent. I felt like I couldn't breathe. My husband, the man I'd been married to for 43 years, the man I'd built a life with, the man I'd trusted completely. He was a monster, and I'd been sleeping next to him for over 4 decades. I'm sorry, I finally managed to say to Vada. I'm so sorry he did that to you, and I'm sorry you weren't believed. It's not your fault. You didn't know. None of us knew the full extent of what he was doing, but now we do, and now we can stop him. That evening, Lucinda called a press conference. All 13 women who'd come forward, including me, stood together on the steps of her office building. Cameras everywhere. Reporters shouting questions. Lucinda spoke first. Today, we are announcing that Monroe Sullivan is facing allegations from 13 women spanning over 20 years. These allegations include financial fraud, embezzlement, identity theft, and sexual harassment. The total estimated damages exceed $500,000. We are calling on the district attorney to open a criminal investigation immediately, and we are calling on any other victims of Monroe Sullivan to come forward. Then each woman spoke, briefly, powerfully, telling their stories, showing the pattern, proving that Monroe wasn't just a man who made one mistake. He was a predator who'd been destroying women's lives for decades. I spoke last. My name is Corinne Sullivan. I was married to Monroe for 43 years. I thought I knew him. I thought he was a good man. I was wrong. But I'm not ashamed, because the shame belongs to him. The guilt belongs to him. The consequences belong to him. And to every woman watching this who's been lied to, cheated on, stolen from, or harassed, you are not alone. You are not crazy. You are not responsible for what was done to you. And you deserve justice. The press conference went viral. Within hours, it was the top story on every news outlet. Monroe Sullivan was trending on social media. People were calling him everything from the worst husband in America to a serial predator who belongs in prison. And Monroe was hiding. No one had seen him since the story first broke. His phone was off. He wasn't at Sally's house. He wasn't at our house. He disappeared. But I wasn't worried about finding him, because I knew Monroe, knew how he thought, knew his patterns, and I knew exactly where he'd go when everything fell apart. So that night, I drove to 2847 Oak Lane, my sister-in-law's house. Monroe's sister Ollie had always been his biggest defender, his protector, the one person who believed he could do no wrong. If Monroe was hiding anywhere, it would be there. I parked across the street, waited, and sure enough, 40 minutes later I saw him through the window, Monroe, looking terrible, disheveled, defeated. I got out of my car, walked up to Ollie's front door, knocked. Ollie answered. Her face went hard when she saw me. "What do you want, Corinne?" "I want to talk to your brother, face to face. No lawyers, no press, just the two of us." "He doesn't want to talk to you. You've destroyed his life, humiliated him publicly, turned everyone against him." "He destroyed his own life. I just made sure people knew about it. Now you can either let me in to talk to him, or I can call the media and tell them Monroe is hiding at your house. Your choice." She glared at me, but she stepped aside. Monroe sat on Ollie's couch, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him, broken. When he saw me, his eyes filled with tears. "Corinne, please, we need to talk. I need to explain." "No, you need to listen, because I'm about to tell you exactly what's going to happen next. And Monroe, it's going to be so much worse than you imagined. 13 victims, $500,000 stolen. If you're shocked, smash that like button and subscribe now. Turn on all notifications and comment, where are you watching from? And are you team CORINE? I stood in Ollie's living room, looking down at my husband of 43 years. He looked pathetic, hair messy, eyes red from crying, still wearing the same clothes he'd had on 3 days ago. "Corinne," he said again, his voice breaking. "Please, let me explain. Let me tell you my side." "Your side?" I laughed, a cold, bitter laugh. "Monroe, there is no your side that makes this better. You cheated. You lied. You stole from me. You stole from at least 12 other women. You sexually harassed a 19-year-old girl. There's no explanation that justifies any of that." "I made mistakes." "Mistakes, Monroe, mistakes are forgetting to take out the trash. Mistakes are being late to dinner. What you did wasn't mistakes. It was calculated, deliberate, evil. You spent 2 years planning to destroy my life. You spent a decade stealing from vulnerable women. Those weren't mistakes. Those were choices." Ollie stepped between us. "Corinne, you need to calm down. Monroe has been through enough." "He's been through enough." I turned on her. "Ollie, your brother stole over $500,000 from women who trusted him. He sexually harassed his employee. He tried to leave me homeless and broke after 43 years of marriage. And you think he's been through enough? What about what those women have been through? What about what I've been through?" "Monroe said you're blowing this out of proportion, that some of those women are lying." "None of them are lying, and I can prove it. Every single allegation has documentation, bank records, Emails, witness statements, police reports. Monroe isn't a victim here, Ollie. He's a predator. And the fact that you're defending him tells me you're either in denial or you knew what he was doing and didn't care. Ollie's face went pale. I didn't know. Didn't you? Did you know he bought his girlfriend a house? Did you know he was stealing from our retirement savings? Did you know he took out credit cards in my name? She looked at Monroe. He wouldn't meet her eyes. Oh my God, Ollie whispered. You did all of that? Monroe, you told me Corinne was lying, that she was being vindictive because you wanted a divorce. You said she was making everything up to punish you. I didn't tell you everything, Monroe said quietly. I didn't want you to think badly of me. You didn't want me to know the truth, you mean? Ollie sat down hard. How could you do this? How could you be this person? I don't know, Monroe shouted. Then quieter. I don't know, it started small, little things, and then it got bigger, and I couldn't stop. I kept thinking I'd fix it, I'd pay everyone back. I'd make it right, but it just kept spiraling. When were you going to make it right? I asked coldly. Before or after you divorced me and left me with nothing? Before or after you ran off to the house you bought Sally with my money? When exactly was this redemption supposed to happen? He had no answer. I pulled out my phone, opened my email. Monroe, here's what's going to happen next. The district attorney has opened a criminal investigation. You're being charged with multiple counts of fraud, embezzlement, identity theft, and financial exploitation of the elderly. The DA estimates you're facing 20 to 30 years in prison. His face went white. No, that can't be right. I'm 69 years old. I'd die in prison. You should have thought about that before you committed crimes. But wait, there's more. I scrolled to the next email. The IRS has been notified about the unreported income you received from your theft. They're auditing you. Apparently, you didn't pay taxes on the money you stole. That's tax evasion. More charges, more prison time. Corinne, please. I'm not done. The State Board of Accountancy has revoked your license. You'll never work as an accountant again. The Better Business Bureau has issued warnings about you. Every client you've ever had is being contacted and told to review their accounts for discrepancies. More victims are coming forward every day. We're up to 19 now. Monroe was hyperventilating. Ollie handed him a paper bag to breathe into. And here's my favorite part, I continued. Remember that life insurance policy you took out on me? The $500,000 policy where you're the beneficiary. The insurance company investigated after I reported the fraud. And guess what they found? You increased the coverage 6 months ago, right around the time you were planning to divorce me. They're investigating whether you were planning something more permanent than divorce. What? Monroe looked genuinely shocked. No, I would never. I wasn't planning to hurt you. I just wanted the insurance in case something happened. In case something happened? Monroe, you increased my life insurance to $500,000 while actively planning to leave me, while stealing from me, while ruining my credit. That looks suspicious. Very suspicious. Suspicious enough that the police are now investigating whether you were planning to kill me. I wasn't, he screamed. I swear to God I would never hurt you physically, never. But you'd hurt me every other way. You'd steal from me, lie to me, cheat on me, destroy my financial security, ruin my credit, humiliate me, betray me for 2 years. But physically hurting me is where you draw the line. How noble of you, Monroe. He collapsed into sobs, real, ugly crying. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. I made bad choices. I got in too deep. I didn't know how to get out. You could have been honest. You could have come to me 2 years ago and said, Corinne, I'm in trouble. I need help. We could have worked it out together. We could have fixed it. But instead, you chose to betray me, to steal from me, to plan a future without me while pretending everything was fine. You chose this, Monroe. Every step of the way, you chose this. Ollie looked at her brother with disgust. Monroe, you need to leave my house. I can't be part of this. I can't protect you anymore. Ollie, please. I have nowhere else to go. That's not my problem. You did this to yourself, and I won't be complicit in helping you hide from the consequences. Where am I supposed to go? Corinne changed the locks on our house. Sally won't return my calls. I don't have any money, all our accounts are frozen. I literally have nowhere to go. Again, not my problem. Ollie stood up. Get out of my house. Now. Monroe looked at me desperately. Corinne, please. I know I don't deserve your help. I know I've destroyed everything. But please, don't let me end up on the streets. I'm an old man. I'm your husband. We have 43 years of history. We had 43 years of history, until you destroyed it, until you made me question every moment of our marriage, until you proved that none of it was real. You weren't my husband, Monroe. You were a con artist who happened to live in my house. What can I do? How can I make this right? You can't. There's no making this right. But Monroe, I'm going to give you one chance, one opportunity to show a shred of decency. He looked up hopefully. What? Anything, I'll do anything. You're going to plead guilty to all charges. You're going to cooperate with the investigation. You're going to help track down every penny you stole and return it to your victims. You're going to make full restitution. And you're going to accept whatever prison sentence you receive without fighting it. That's a death sentence. I'm 69 years old. If I go to prison for 20 years, I'll die there. Then you'll die there. But at least you'll die having done one decent thing, taking responsibility for what you did. And if I don't, if I fight the charges, then I'll make sure every media outlet in the country knows every detail of what you did. I'll do interviews, write a book, go on talk shows. I'll make sure that when people Google your name, all they see is Monroe Sullivan, serial thief and predator. Your grandchildren will grow up knowing what their grandfather did. Your name will be synonymous with betrayal and fraud. That will be your legacy. Monroe stared at me, and I saw the moment he understood. I wasn't the quiet, forgiving wife anymore. I was the woman in the crimson suit, the woman who dismantled his entire life while he thought he was getting away with everything. You've changed, he said quietly. You're not the woman I married. You're right, I'm not. The woman you married believed in you, trusted you, loved you. That woman is gone. You killed her when you betrayed her. I'm what's left. And Monroe, I'm so much stronger than you ever imagined. I left Ollie's house and drove home. But when I pulled into my driveway, I saw someone sitting on my front porch. Sally, Monroe's girlfriend. She stood up when she saw me. She looked terrible. Eyes swollen from crying, hair messy, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt. Mrs. Sullivan, please, I need to talk to you. I have nothing to say to you. Please, just 5 minutes. I need you to understand. I didn't know. I didn't know he was married when we met. He told me he was divorced. I paused with my key in the door. What? When I met Monroe 2 years ago, he told me he was divorced, that his wife had left him, that he was lonely and starting over. I had no idea you existed. No idea he was still married. Not until you showed up at my house 3 days ago. I turned around slowly. You expect me to believe that? You had no idea for 2 years. I know it sounds crazy, but he was careful. He never wore a wedding ring. He'd come to my house during the day when he said he was working. He'd spend evenings with me, weekends sometimes, and he had explanations for everything. When he couldn't come over, it was because of client meetings or work obligations. I never questioned it. I trusted him. You're 26 years old. He's 69. You didn't find that strange. I don't care about age. I loved him, or I thought I did. But Mrs. Sullivan, I need you to know I'm a victim here too. He lied to me. He stole from me. He used me. He stole from you. Yes, he told me he wanted to buy me a house. Said he'd been saving for years. Said he wanted us to have a place together. I was so happy, so grateful. But then 3 days ago, you showed up and told me the house was bought with stolen money. And then the banks came. They're foreclosing, taking the house back. And now I'm being investigated too because my name is on accounts he used to launder money. I'm going to lose everything. My job, my reputation, possibly face criminal charges. All because I believed a man who lied to me. She started crying. I loved him, I really loved him, and he destroyed my life. I looked at this young woman, this girl who was young enough to be my granddaughter, and I felt, not sympathy exactly, but something close to it. Sally, sit down. We sat on my porch, in the fading evening light. Did Monroe ever tell you about me? I asked. No, Never. Until you showed up, I didn't know you existed. Did he tell you about our children? Our grandchildren? He said he didn't have children. Said his ex-wife couldn't have kids, and it was one of the reasons they divorced. So many lies, layer upon layer of lies. Monroe hadn't just betrayed me. He'd erased me, erased our entire life together, pretended I didn't exist. Sally, I'm going to tell you something, and you're not going to like it, but you need to hear it. Okay. You were never special to Monroe. You weren't the love of his life. You weren't his soulmate. You were convenient, young, easy to manipulate. He used you to feel young again, to feel powerful, to have something that made him feel like he wasn't an old man staring at the end of his life. She flinched, but didn't argue. And here's the hard truth. You're not the first. Before you, there were other women, other affairs, other lies. I found evidence going back 15 years. You're just the most recent, the one he got caught with. There were others. At least 3 that I can prove, probably more. Monroe is a serial cheater, a serial liar, a serial con artist, and you were just another mark. Sally was crying harder now. How do you do this? How do you stay strong? How are you not falling apart? Because I gave him 43 years of falling apart. 43 years of making myself small, making excuses for him, believing his lies, trusting him when my gut told me not to. I'm done falling apart for Monroe Sullivan. Now I'm building myself back up, and he's the one who gets to fall apart. I don't know how to move forward from this. Neither did I, but I figured it out. One day at a time, one decision at a time, one act of taking my power back at a time. And Sally, the first step is accepting that what happened wasn't your fault. You're a victim, but you don't have to stay a victim. You can fight back too. How? By telling the truth, by cooperating with investigators, by testifying against him if it comes to that, by making sure Monroe faces consequences for what he did to you too. She looked at me with something like hope. Would you help me? Would you tell me how you did it? How you built your case? I thought about it. This girl had slept with my husband, had lived in a house bought with my money, had been part of Monroe's betrayal even if she didn't know it. But she was also 26, young, naive, manipulated by a man who was a professional liar. Yes, I said finally. I'll help you, not for Monroe's sake, not even for yours, really, but because every woman he's hurt deserves justice, and you're one of those women. Over the next week, Sally and I worked together. We compared notes, matched timelines. She provided information about Monroe's activities that I didn't have. I helped her understand the legal process, connected her with Lucinda. And we discovered something shocking, something that explained everything. Monroe hadn't just been stealing to fund his lifestyle with Sally. He'd been stealing to pay off gambling debts. Sally found records on Monroe's laptop. He'd left it at her house and hadn't come back for it. Records showing he'd lost over $300,000 gambling online over the past 5 years. Sports betting, casino games, poker. He'd been addicted. That's why he'd needed so much money. Why he'd stolen from so many women. Why he'd been desperate enough to plan divorcing me and taking everything. He wasn't just a cheater and a liar. He was a gambling addict who destroyed countless lives to fund his addiction. When I showed this evidence to Lucinda, she smiled grimly. This changes everything. This proves premeditation, proves he knew exactly what he was doing. This is going to add years to his sentence. Good, I said. He deserves every year. 10 days after I'd confronted Monroe at Sally's house, he finally resurfaced publicly. He held a press conference. Without telling me, without telling his lawyer, just showed up in front of cameras and started talking. I watched it live on TV from my living room. Monroe stood at a podium, looking haggard and broken. I'm here today to apologize to my wife Corinne, to the women I stole from, to everyone I've hurt. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I made terrible choices and I'm prepared to face the consequences. He paused, took a breath. I'm pleading guilty to all charges. I'm not going to fight this in court. I'm not going to make excuses. What I did was wrong and I deserve to be punished. I'm cooperating fully with investigators to help return money to my victims. And I want to say to Corinne, I'm sorry. You deserved better. You deserved honesty and faithfulness and respect. You deserved a real husband. I failed you in every way possible, and I will spend the rest of my life regretting that." Then he looked directly into the camera, and what he said next shocked everyone watching. "But I need to say one more thing. Something that's going to make people hate me even more. Something that explains, but doesn't excuse, why I did what I did. 43 years ago, when I married Corinne, I was already living a lie. I was already someone I wasn't, and that lie has destroyed everything." My blood went cold. What was he about to say? "When I met Corinne, I told her I was divorced from my first wife. But that wasn't true. I was still married. I committed bigamy. Corinne and I were never legally married. Our marriage was never valid. And she didn't know. She's been an innocent party to my fraud for over 4 decades. The room erupted. Reporters shouting questions. Cameras flashing. And me? I sat frozen on my couch, unable to breathe, unable to think, unable to process what I'd just heard. I'd never been married to Monroe. For 43 years, I'd lived as his wife, raised his children, built a life with him, and it was all fake, all a lie, all illegal. I wasn't Corinne Sullivan, wronged wife. I was Corinne Sullivan, victim of a 43-year fraud. Bigamy, 43 years of lies. If you're speechless right now, smash that like button and subscribe now. Turn on all notifications. Comment, where are you watching from, and how do you even process this? I sat on my couch, staring at the TV screen, watching my husband, my not husband, confess to bigamy on national television. The reporters were going crazy. Social media was exploding. My phone was ringing nonstop. But I couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't process. 43 years. 43 years of marriage that wasn't real. 43 years of living as Mrs. Corinne Sullivan when legally, I'd never been married at all. My children, were they even legitimate? Or were they the children of an invalid marriage? My identity, my entire life, everything I'd built, everything I'd thought I was, it was all based on a lie. The doorbell rang. I didn't answer it. It rang again, and again. Finally, I heard a key in the lock. I'd given my daughter Nettie a spare key years ago. She burst in with Hiram right behind her. Mama, we just saw, did you know? Did you have any idea?" I shook my head, couldn't speak. Nettie sat beside me, took my hand. "Oh, Mama, I'm so sorry, I don't even have words." "Are we legitimate?" I finally managed to ask. "You and Hiram, are you legally his children?" "Of course we are," Hiram said firmly. "We're your children. That's what matters. The legal status of your marriage doesn't change that we're biologically his kids and legally yours." "But the marriage, I've been living in sin for 43 years. Everyone will know. Everyone will judge." "No," Nettie interrupted. "Everyone will see you as a victim because that's what you are. You didn't know. You thought you were legally married. Monroe committed fraud. You did nothing wrong." My phone rang again. I looked at the caller ID. It was Lucinda. I answered. "Did you see?" "I saw. Corinne, we need to talk. Can I come over?" "Yes, please." 30 minutes later, Lucinda sat in my living room with a thick folder of documents. Nettie and Hiram had stayed to support me. "First," Lucinda said, "I want to be very clear, none of this is your fault. You were lied to, defrauded. You entered into what you believed was a legal marriage in good faith. Monroe committed bigamy, not you." "What does this mean legally?" I asked. "It means several things. First, you were never legally married to Monroe, which means you have no claim to his assets as a spouse. But, and this is important, you have a much stronger claim as a fraud victim. You can sue him for everything he stole from you, everything he defrauded you of, and damages for the 43 years of fraud." "What about the divorce proceedings?" "Those are void. You can't divorce someone you were never married to. But we can pivot to a civil lawsuit for fraud, which could actually get you more compensation than a divorce would have. And our children. Legally legitimate, born to you and biologically fathered by Monroe. Their status isn't affected by the invalid marriage. Your parental rights are secure." I took a shaky breath. Who was he actually married to? His first wife, is she still alive? According to public records, yes. Her name is Sadie Monroe, kept her married name. She lives in Savannah. She's 71 years old. And Corinne. She's been trying to reach you. She called my office this morning. She wants to talk to me. She says she has information you need to hear. Information about Monroe, about why he did this. She's willing to drive up to Atlanta to meet with you if you're willing. I thought about it. Part of me didn't want to know, didn't want more revelations, more lies exposed, more pain. But another part of me, the part that had spent 6 months methodically destroying Monroe's life, needed to know everything, needed to understand the full scope of his betrayal. Tell her yes, tell her to come. Sadie Monroe arrived at my house the next afternoon. I'd expected someone bitter, angry, vengeful, someone who'd hate me for unknowingly being the other woman for 43 years. Instead, I got a kind-faced woman with silver hair and warm eyes. She hugged me the moment she walked in. Corinne, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for what Monroe did to you, to both of us. We sat in my living room with tea, 2 women bonded by being victims of the same man. Tell me, I said, tell me everything. Monroe and I got married in 1978. I was 22, he was 23. We were young and in love, or so I thought. We had 5 years together, but Monroe was always troubled. He gambled. He lied. He cheated. By 1983, I'd had enough. I told him I wanted a divorce. What happened? He refused, said he'd never agree to a divorce, that marriage was sacred, that we'd work it out. But I was done, so I left. I moved to Savannah, started over, assumed he'd eventually file for divorce. But he never did. And after a few years, I just moved on with my life. I dated, had relationships. But I never remarried because technically I was still married to Monroe. You never filed for divorce yourself. I should have, but I was young and scared and broke. Divorce cost money I didn't have, and Monroe had disappeared from my life completely. I hadn't heard from him in years. I assumed he'd moved on too. I never imagined he'd remarry without divorcing me first. When did you find out about me? 2 days ago, when Monroe's bigamy confession hit the news. I was watching TV and suddenly there's my husband, my legal husband, confessing that he married someone else while still married to me. I nearly had a heart attack. Why did you want to meet me? Sadie took a deep breath. Because I need you to know something. Something that explains, but doesn't excuse, why Monroe is the way he is. Something that might help you understand. I'm listening. Monroe's father was a con artist, a professional fraudster. He ran scams his entire life. Monroe grew up watching his father lie, steal, and manipulate people. It was normal to him. It was how he learned to function in the world. And when Monroe's father died in 1977, right before we got married, Monroe inherited more than just money. He inherited that lifestyle, that mindset, that belief that lying and stealing were acceptable as long as you didn't get caught. Are you saying he couldn't help it, that he's a victim too? No, I'm saying he had a choice. He could have chosen to be different, to break the cycle. But he didn't. He chose to become his father, to hurt people the way his father hurt people. And Corinne, you and I aren't his only victims. There were women before me, and there will be women after us if he ever gets out of prison. Wait, women before you. Monroe had a girlfriend in high school, a girl named Elsie. He stole money from her family. Her father almost pressed charges, but Monroe's father paid them off. Then in college, there was another woman. He defrauded her too. Monroe has been doing this his entire adult life, over 50 years of hurting people. I felt sick. My husband, the father of my children, the man I'd spent 43 years with, had been a predator his entire life. From teenager to old man, he'd never stopped destroying people. What do we do? I asked quietly. How do we make sure he can never do this again? Sadie smiled, a knowing, determined smile. We testify, both of us. We tell the judge everything, every lie, every theft, every moment of fraud. We make sure Monroe Sullivan gets the longest prison sentence possible, and then we move forward with our lives, finally free of him. Monroe's sentencing hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks later. In that time, I'd done something I never imagined I'd do. I'd become friends with Sadie. We'd talk on the phone for hours, share stories about Monroe, compare notes on his patterns, his lies, his manipulations. We laughed about how similar his tactics had been with both of us, the same lines, the same excuses, the same promises. He told me I was the only woman he'd ever truly loved, Sadie said one day. He told me that too, I replied. On our wedding day, in front of all our guests, I believed him completely. We both did. That's what Monroe does. He makes you believe. But now we didn't believe anymore. Now we saw him clearly, and we were going to make sure everyone else did too. The other women Monroe had victimized stayed in touch too. We formed a support group, met weekly, shared our experiences, helped each other heal. Hortense, the 75-year-old he'd stolen from, said it best. Monroe thought we were weak, thought we were easy targets because we're women, because we're older, because we trusted him. But look at us now. We're standing together. We're fighting back. We're the strong ones. The sentencing hearing was held on a Thursday morning. The courtroom was packed. All 13 women who'd originally come forward. Sadie, me, our families, media. Everyone wanted to see justice served. Monroe sat at the defense table looking smaller than ever. He'd aged 10 years in 6 weeks. His lawyer had advised him to plead guilty to avoid a trial. He'd taken the advice. Now he just had to hear his sentence. The judge, a stern-looking woman in her 60s named Judge Ezra Thompson, reviewed the case files. Mr. Sullivan, you've pleaded guilty to 47 counts of fraud, embezzlement, identity theft, bigamy, and financial exploitation. The prosecution has recommended 35 years in prison. Your defense has asked for leniency due to your age. Before I pass sentence, I'm going to hear victim impact statements. Mrs. Corinne Sullivan, you may proceed. I stood up, walked to the podium, looked at Monroe one last time. Your Honor, for 43 years, I thought I was married to a good man. I thought I knew him. I thought we had a life together based on love and partnership. I was wrong about all of it. Monroe Sullivan isn't a good man. He's a con artist who spent his entire life hurting people. He's stolen over $500,000 from vulnerable women. He's destroyed lives. And he's done it all without remorse. The man sitting at that defense table isn't sorry he hurt people. He's sorry he got caught. And if given the chance, he'd do it all again. That's why I'm asking you to give him the maximum sentence. Not for revenge, but to protect future victims. Because as long as Monroe Sullivan is free, women are in danger. I sat down. One by one, the other women gave their statements. Each one powerful. Each one showing the full extent of Monroe's damage. Finally, Sadie stood up, Monroe's legal wife, the woman he'd never divorced. Your Honor, I was married to Monroe Sullivan for 43 years. Technically, legally. Even though I left him in 1983 and never saw him again until 2 weeks ago in this courtroom. For 43 years, he kept me trapped in a marriage I'd escaped from, kept me from moving on completely with my life, kept me legally bound to him while he committed bigamy and destroyed another woman's life. That's cruelty. That's evil. And that deserves the maximum punishment. Judge Thompson listened to everything, reviewed the documents, and then she spoke. Mr. Sullivan, in my 30 years as a judge, I have never seen such a comprehensive pattern of fraud and exploitation. You didn't just commit crimes. You built a lifestyle around victimizing people. You targeted vulnerable women. You destroyed families. You showed no remorse until you were caught. And even your confession, your public admission of bigamy, was strategic. You thought that by admitting to one crime, you'd gain sympathy that would reduce your sentence for the others. It didn't work. I'm sentencing you to 45 years in federal prison, consecutive sentences on all counts. You will also pay full restitution to all victims, estimated at $623,000. Your pension and Social Security will be garnished to pay this debt. And upon release, if you live that long, you will be barred from working in any field that involves handling other people's money. 45 years. Monroe was 69. He'd be 114 when he got out. He'd die in prison. He collapsed in his chair when he heard the sentence, started crying, begging, "Please, Your Honor, I'm an old man. This is a death sentence." You sentenced yourself when you chose to hurt all these women. Court is adjourned. They led Monroe away in handcuffs. He looked at me one last time, mouthed the words, "I'm sorry." I looked away. His apology meant nothing to me. After the hearing, all the women gathered outside the courthouse. Media everywhere, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions. But we didn't give individual interviews. Instead, we stood together. 13 women, plus Sadie. 14 women who'd been victimized by the same man. 14 women who'd fought back and won. A reporter asked, "Mrs. Sullivan, how do you feel now that Monroe has been sentenced?" I thought about it. How did I feel? I feel free. For 43 years, I was tied to a lie, to a man who didn't exist, to a marriage that wasn't real. But today, that lie ends. Today, I get to start over. And I'm going to do it as Corinne Me Jenkins, my maiden name, because I was never really Corinne Sullivan. That woman never existed. What's next for you? Living. I'm 67 years old and I've spent long enough being someone's victim. Now I'm going to be Corinne Jenkins, a woman with her own identity, her own life, her own future. And Monroe Sullivan will rot in prison while I thrive. 6 months after Monroe's sentencing, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror getting ready for an important day. I put on my crimson red suit, the one I'd worn when Karma arrived at Sally's house, the one I'd worn when I'd destroyed Monroe's lies. But today wasn't about Monroe. Today was about me. I'd been invited to speak at a conference for women who'd experienced financial abuse. Over 500 women would be there. Women who'd been stolen from, lied to, manipulated by partners or family members. Women who needed to know they could fight back. My children, my legitimate, wonderful children, were coming with me. Nettie and Hiram had stood by me through everything, had supported me, had helped me rebuild. "You look powerful, Mama," Nettie said, adjusting my collar. "I feel powerful," I replied. "For the first time in 43 years, I feel like myself." At the conference, I told my story, all of it, the cheating, the lies, the theft, the bigamy, the 6 months of secret investigation. The moment I'd walked into Sally's house wearing this suit and watched Monroe collapse when he realized Karma had arrived. "But here's what I want you all to understand," I said to the audience of 500 women. "Karma didn't arrive on its own. I became Karma. I decided that Monroe wasn't going to get away with what he'd done. I decided to fight back. I decided to be the consequence he faced, and you can do the same thing. If you're being financially abused, document everything. Gather evidence. Protect your assets. Build your case. And then strike when you're ready. Don't wait for justice to arrive. Become justice. Become Karma. Become the consequence that your abuser never saw coming." The audience stood up, applauding, crying, some shouting encouragement. After my speech, women lined up to talk to me, to share their stories, to ask for advice, to thank me for giving them hope. One woman, probably in her 50s, grabbed my hand. "My husband has been stealing from me for 10 years. I've been scared to confront him, scared of what he'll do. But hearing your story, I'm ready now. I'm going to fight back." "Good," I said. "And remember, you don't have to do it alone. Find other women who have been through this. Build a support network, strength in numbers." That's what we'd done. All 14 of Monroe's victims had stayed connected. We'd created a foundation, the Crimson Suit Foundation, to help women experiencing financial abuse. We provided legal resources, financial planning assistance, emotional support, everything we wished we'd had when we were going through it. And we'd helped over 200 women so far. Women who'd been stolen from, lied to, manipulated. Women who were now fighting back and winning. 1 year after Monroe's sentencing, I got a letter from him in prison. The first communication I'd received since the trial. "Dear Corinne, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know I have no right to contact you, but I needed to tell you something. I'm dying. The doctors say I have cancer. 6 months to live, maybe less. And I wanted to apologize, really apologize, not the fake apology I gave at the press conference or in court. A real one. You deserved better. You deserved honesty and faithfulness and a real husband. You deserved 43 years of truth instead of 43 years of lies. I stole that from you. I stole your peace, your security, your identity, and I'm sorry. I know sorry doesn't fix anything. I know I destroyed your life, but I needed to say it anyway. You were always better than me, stronger than me, smarter than me. I should have appreciated that. Instead, I resented it and tried to diminish it. But in the end, you won. You destroyed me completely, and I deserved it. Every consequence, every punishment, every moment of suffering, I earned all of it. I won't ask you to forgive me. I won't ask you to visit me before I die. I just wanted you to know you were the best thing in my life, and I destroyed it because I'm a weak, selfish man who couldn't handle being married to such a strong woman. Monroe. I read that letter 3 times, and then I did something I hadn't done in a year. I cried, not for Monroe, not for what we'd had, but for the 43 years I'd lost, the time I'd wasted believing a lie, the version of myself I'd buried to be Mrs. Monroe Sullivan. But then I wiped my tears, put the letter away, and moved forward. Because Monroe was right about one thing, I was strong, stronger than he'd ever imagined, strong enough to survive his betrayal, strong enough to fight back, strong enough to build a new life from the ashes of the old one. Monroe died in prison 4 months later. His obituary mentioned his crimes, his victims, his 45-year sentence. It also mentioned that he was survived by 2 children, Nettie and Hiram, and his ex-common-law partner, Corinne Jenkins. Not his wife, not Mrs. Sullivan, just Corinne Jenkins, his victim. I didn't go to his funeral, neither did our children, but Sadie went. She said she needed closure, needed to see him in the ground to finally believe she was free. She called me afterward. He looked so small in that coffin, so insignificant. I spent 43 years legally tied to him, and in the end, he was just a small, weak man who hurt people because he couldn't face his own inadequacies. "Are you okay?" I asked. "I'm free, finally completely free, and Corinne, so are you." She was right, I was free. Free from Monroe's lies, free from the fake identity of Mrs. Sullivan, free from the weight of a 43-year fraud. I was Corinne Me Jenkins, 68 years old, survivor, fighter, the woman who'd become karma. And I was just getting started. Today, at 69 years old, I run the Crimson Suit Foundation. We've helped over 1,000 women escape financial abuse. We've recovered over $3 million in stolen funds. We've sent 7 abusers to prison. I speak at conferences across the country, tell my story, inspire women to fight back, show them that you're never too old, never too late, never too broken to rebuild your life. My children are proud of me. My grandchildren call me the strongest grandma ever. And women everywhere know my name as a symbol of fighting back against betrayal. I date now, nothing serious, just enjoying male companionship without the weight of commitment or lies. I travel. I pursue hobbies I'd abandoned during my marriage. I live fully. And every time I put on my crimson red suit, the one I wore when karma arrived, I remember that moment. The moment Monroe collapsed when he realized his wife was smarter, stronger, and more ruthless than he'd ever imagined. He cheated, he lied, he stole, and karma arrived wearing my suit. And karma won. Wow, what an incredible journey from betrayal to total victory. If this story moved you, inspired you, or showed you that you're never too weak to fight back, we need you to take action right now. Smash that like button. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful grandmother stories every single week. Turn on all notifications bell so you never miss our next amazing story. Comment below and tell us, where are you watching from? USA, UK, Canada, Jamaica, South Africa, Kenya, Trinidad, Australia. We love our global family. Would you have become karma like Corinne did? What was the most shocking twist? Have you or someone you know experienced financial abuse? Share this video with anyone dealing with a cheating partner, women experiencing financial abuse, anyone who needs courage to fight back, people recovering from betrayal, everyone who needs to know you can rebuild your life. Thank you to our incredible viewers from around the world. From the USA, United Kingdom, Canada, South Africa, Kenya, Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados, Zimbabwe, Australia, and everywhere else. We see you, we appreciate you, and we love you. Remember Corinne's lesson. Don't wait for karma, become karma. Document everything when you suspect abuse. Protect your assets before confronting your abuser. You're never too old to fight back. Financial abuse is criminal. Report it. Build your support network with other survivors. And when you strike, strike hard, strike smart, and make sure they never see you coming. Stay strong, stay blessed, and remember, the woman in the crimson suit is inside you, waiting to fight back.